All right, everyone, we're live, and this is definitely our first time going live for the day. We didn't go live there for a second, realized that nothing was plugged in, and we're stepping up our game here over here. Because, if this country's winning a war, we can put out good content on the Run Your Mouth podcast. What's up? No intro today. I've been too busy editing sketches. Got a new series coming out at some point. And, guys, it's time to start giving up your porches. Start sending me sexy porch shots of your porch wearing lingerie, bras draped over it, as if you had some good New Orleans party there or something, because porch season is upon us. I've been spending too much time at home, and it is time to re-hit the road, not sleep with fans, because we don't have any women that come out to porches. Maybe this will be the year where we figure out how to make porches a more female-friendly environment, which I think is getting on the internet every day and going, you know what we need? We need government to start paying for all of our health care. In that voice. You got to do it in that voice. If I started a new show called the Rob Wants to Get Laid podcast, and just every episode was, well, government's not spending enough money on us, okay? And then that's how you make the porch a friendly environment for women. Anyways, episode brought to you by YoKratom.com, home of the $60 kilo. Only place in the entire world you can get a full kilo of kratom for just $60. And let's get into the news, because we do have a lot going on, and I want to start with this because, part of winning a war is sometimes you have to actually start throwing some boots on the ground. Sometimes you can't just drop endless missiles from the skies, and you have to actually commit to winning and fulfill Netanyahu's dream of overthrowing the Iran regime. And so there was articles coming out the other day that they raised the draft age all the way up to 42 because we live in a different world now with testosterone, with BPC 157. And so, the military, they can start recruiting older men and throwing them into slots. And I'm sure some of you guys are starting to get nervous. How crazy is this Iran war going to go? And what can I do if there ends up being a draft? And so to start today's episode, I want to give you guys my tips for how you can avoid a draft. And the first you can do is, let's say the draft officers come to your house, is you can just pull a Trump, and when they come to your door, you go, I already fought. They're calling me a hero, maybe the greatest hero. I got a Medal of Honor, a platinum one. I did so good, they didn't even give me gold. I can't show it to you, but I do have it. Did you not see me? I was on the news yesterday. People would be very upset if you sent me back. They'd say not good things. Or you could try stealing plots from movies and just be like, they sent me home because all three of my brothers already died out there. Is there any record of it? No, they're dead. Or here's probably the best way to get out of the war is you just tell them that you're on Trump's insider trading team. And so it's a lot more beneficial for Trump if you're at home so you can execute these trades on each time he's putting out new news. Take a Monty Python route, build yourself a trench and go, I've already got a trench to protect. Or maybe join ICE. I bet they're not going to recruit people that join ICE. Maybe that could be a fair trade, is that if you successfully join ICE and deport at least one illegal immigrant, you get to stay in the country. And now, obviously, this would be the best case scenario. I mean, the absolute best case scenario. If Trump wants to redeem himself to all of the real Republicans out there, and listen, I still wouldn't support this war, but I think that this move could thoroughly redeem Donald Trump. The thoroughly is a little bit too aggressive. But, if Donald Trump can claim he's winning a war, I think I can make grandiose claims as well. So let's go with this could thoroughly redeem Donald Trump. Is if he got on the news and said he was instituting a draft, but per military recommendations, they can't take you if you haven't been COVID vaccinated. Wouldn't that be a little bit redeeming from Trump? All right, let's take some comments and then we'll get into the latest. Isaiah Station 10421, can I just say I'm a woman? You can dress like a lady. I do approve of that. Shannon Wolfie, female fan here, and no, I don't think the government should pay for our health care. There you go. One of 7 people. Mr. Denetic 8768, we need more government funding to get Rob laid. Yes, the Department of Getting Rob laid. I would that would also win back Trump in my eyes. Senior Rex extraordinaire, let them know we already won. All right, let's get into some topics here, and let's start with this, which is The theme I would like to explore in today's show is I've already pleaded with Donald Trump, and we know he's a regular watcher of the show because when he likes to be influenced by the media, he doesn't just want to be influenced by Mark Levin. So we know that he watches a broad range of shows. And the plea to Donald Trump was, please just don't let the Democrats be right. The Democrats that said we need to censor the internet, we need to run the deep state against Donald Trump because this guy just can't be in control. He's too much of a lunatic. He's going to become a dictator. Let's not let the biggest idiots of our society be right. That's kind of where I'm at with Donald Trump at this point, is maybe just walk away from this war, do the thing that you do, declare victory. Let's not escalate it or somehow figure out how to win this thing, which doesn't seem to be all that easy or feasible. But, you know, my thought with Donald Trump, and I still do plead, just please don't let the Democrats be right. If there's one thing, but Donald Trump, and this is what's interesting, is that he has so much confidence, sometimes he even fools me, and that you always wonder when he's finally going to pull the rabbit out of its ass. Out of his ass. I don't think you can pull a rabbit out of its own ass. That would be the greatest magical trick of all time, if you managed to pull a rabbit out of the rabbit's own ass. But you always wonder with Donald Trump, you know, does he have an ace up his sleeve? Is there something that we're not seeing? And when I criticized, for example, Donald Trump on the tariffs, and I said, this guy has no plan, and a lot of you guys just took it hook, line, and sinker that your factory jobs were coming back, is you see him completely lie through his teeth on the Iran war in ways that we're going to showcase and are undeniable. Do you look back at some of these other things now and go, oh, he was just lying? Because, for example, he somewhat had me on claiming that he won an election because I said, man, there were some screwy things in that election. He didn't prove it, so he's a loser in that sense, and he was the president, and so he had all the power in the world to make the adjustments or actually prove his case, and he didn't do any of that. So in that sense, he's a loser. But I was open to the idea when he said that the Democrats cheated him out of an election, and I was also willing to investigate and to look at some of the evidence and go, yeah, some of this does look like buffoonery. But as we look back, has Donald Trump just jumped the shark in this one single issue? Or has this guy been the guy that we've been dealing with this entire time? And the left was, in some regards, very right in the way that he criticized him. And I'm still hopeful for this rabbit out of his ass. Because sometimes this is the way I feel with Donald Trump. It's like if you went to a magic show and the magician is just twirling around like Will Ferrell at the end of Old School. He's doing like a ballet thing with the magical wand thing, and he keeps telling you, just stay to the end, I got the greatest trick you've ever seen. And people are getting up and leaving, and he keeps going, just wait, greatest trick, no one's ever seen a magic trick like this. And people keep trickling out, and you're like, I'm going to wait till the end of this thing. And then you get to the end of the show, and you're like, man, that thing sucked. That guy didn't have anything, right? And then you walk outside, and for some reason, you look down your pants, you're like, holy shit, my dick got bigger. And that's like the hope that you still kind of hold in your heart for Donald Trump, is that you never know the way the story's going to end. And perhaps he's got that ace up his sleeve, and he's got some magical trick, and the whole thing's going to turn around, but it's just not looking that way this time. And I've been a sucker for Donald Trump's gusto and confidence in the past. If you're new to the show, we criticized him quite a bit, including right when he got into office, and quite a bit on the tariffs. But he just does have that undeniable confidence that sometimes you just sit back and you're like, does he actually have something? But on this one, he seems to be so recklessly lying through his teeth with no angle whatsoever that you just wonder, was he this uninformed on everything else? And even though I didn't vote for him, to the extent that I even gave him the leeway of maybe there's something there and I'm just not seeing, that we were all completely fooled and wrong. I'm genuinely asking. I'll go to the chat now. For some of you guys that were supporters of Donald Trump and you watch the tricks he's pulling on this one and the way that they're just not working because he's so blatantly lying, such as I'm negotiating with them, we're not talking with Donald Trump, we're going to run the Hormuz. How's that going to play out? We're winning this war. Oh, it's 3 weeks later and the war's still going. I'm genuinely curious. For some of you guys that were loyalists and avid supporters, and through the tariffs and a lot of these other topics, you thought, I'm standing with this guy, and don't worry, 4D chess, he's got a plan. Are you looking back at the other times that he was lying and going, man, how was I fooled? All right, let's take some comments here. Hey, I'm going to play some games. Who wants America to die for another country? Certainly not this America. Rich Henry, the perpetual rabbit out of the ass trick. I'd like to see that when you visit Boise for a porch tour. I've yet to make it to Boise. I would like to play Boise. It's very difficult because it's like a two-flight thing. You kind of have to do it in conjunction with Portland, and then usually other markets make sense. Someone with deep pockets got the ability to sponsor a porch tour out in Boise, so we can make the numbers work on that one. It's one of the few bigger cities that I've never visited. All right, Evan McKenzie 5401 bought the immigration narrative hook, line, and sinker. Starting to come around a little on that. Ryan Catching 45, sunk cost fallacy. I get what you're saying there. You sat through the Magic show so long, you want to see it through to the end. Ryan Cadwell, hey, I'm going to play some games. He probably has allergies. Who has allergies? Do I have allergies? Do I sound like I have allergies? Is my mic not working well? Why do you got to make me self-conscious about the production of the show? We even started a new stream today to make sure that it would be smooth flowing. All right, so, oh wait, I had a video here. Let's.
We killed all their leadership. And then they met to choose new leaders, and we killed all of them. And now we have a new group, and we can easily do that, but let's see how they turn out. We have really regime change. You know, this is a change in the regime.
All right, pulling the doll hair trick, and even though he blasted all the other regime leaders to hell, the new regime leader is apparently more of a hardliner, but we have yet to have a conversation with him. Donald Trump has been negotiating with somebody else, apparently. But now the claim is we've already successfully accomplished regime change. Sure, it's the same government, and it's the son of the guy that we needed to get rid of, and he's worse, but technically, it's a different regime, and so, in a sense, he's declaring victory here. But let's continue.
Because the leaders are all very different than the ones that we started off with that created all those problems. So this was, I think we can say, Jason, this is regime change, right?
What makes you trust them?
Mission accomplished. We're still going. We're sending troops out to the region for the victory parade that we will be having shortly. But we've already got the regime change. We've won, people.
I don't trust anybody. I don't trust you. I mean, that's only because I know you. But if I didn't know you, I'd probably have more trust.
All right, this part wasn't that interesting, but we're coming up to when he talks about that Iran sent him a gift.
But I don't trust anyone.
Why bother?
Why do you say that? Why do you say what makes you trust? Do you think I trust them? I don't trust them.
Why bother talking to them?
Because they're going to make a deal. They're going to make a deal. They did something yesterday that was amazing, actually. They gave us a present, and the present arrived today. And it was a very big present worth a tremendous amount of money. And I'm not going to tell you what that present is, but
it was, they're going to coordinate on insider trading. That was the gift. It's the 4-year-old Donald Trump. I have a secret. I can't tell you the secret. It's a great secret. You would love to know the secret, but I can't tell you the secret. Everyone else knows the secret. I'm not going to tell you the secret. All right, so we're supposed to believe now. Just to kind of give you guys the storyline of what happened here. Donald Trump claimed that he was negotiating, and soon we were going to be running the Hormuz Strait in conjunction with the Iranians. The Iranians turned around and said, yes, we are not in conversation with Donald Trump, and we will not be negotiating with Donald Trump. Prior to that, Donald Trump had said, hey, you've got 48 hours to just call it a war and acquiesce to all of our demands, or I'm going to commit war crimes, and I'm going to take out the civilian infrastructure, energy infrastructure within your country. And Iran got to the end of that clock and said, yeah, we're going to continue this war. We're going to continue to fight with you. And that's when Donald Trump folded, did not engage in those war crimes, and decided to say, hey, we're basically good. We've worked out a deal. Then after that took place, Israel immediately struck Iran. Iran continued to fight back at them, said we have no interest in negotiating. We're not negotiating. And now the latest news from Donald Trump is that Iran is sending gifts to him directly. Maybe they're making direct payments to Donald Trump, and that's why he's not telling us about us. The Iranians have figured out Donald Trump's grifting and is just looking for his cash payout. And maybe if they can just give it to him directly, he'll walk away from this war and break up with Israel. But here you have it. The latest from Donald Trump is we're sending troops over there. They've declined our ability to negotiate, but we have full regime change, and the war is basically over because we're already at the stage where they're sending us gifts. Yes, they're demanding reparations for the damage we've done in their country, but actually they're sending us incredible gifts worth a ton of money, but I can't tell you what they are. Let's continue.
It was a very significant prize, and they gave it to us, and they said they were going to give it, so that meant one thing to me: we're dealing with the right people.
Nuclear related?
No, it wasn't nuclear related. It was oil and gas related, and it was a very nice thing they did, but what it showed me is that we're dealing with the right people.
Can't tell us what it was. All right, and this is along the lines of what I was talking about of just don't let the left be right. Because here we've got an article from NBC News where in the past when they were criticizing Donald Trump with stories like this, I would just go, fake news. I would be on Donald Trump's side and I would go, come on, that's not true. That's a little bit too ridiculous. But now I'm not sure where I'm at here. Has the storyline just changed where Donald Trump has so completely jumped the shark that now the left media companies that we would never, ever read, support, listen to, or do anything other than basically just mock for their ridiculous reporting? Are they now finally being right just on this one single topic where Donald Trump has so jumped the shark they can actually report honest information of what's going on and it's in line with reality because Donald Trump is messing up that horribly? But this is reported from NBC News inside Trump's daily video montage briefing on Iran war. The montage, which typically runs for about 2 minutes, has raised concerns among some of the president's allies that he may not be receiving the complete picture of the war. And so I guess they come in every morning and they've got 2 minutes of video, which is both because that's all that Donald Trump can actually focus for, and it's also because that's all the good footage that they have. So they do a highlight video of all the things that they've successfully blown up, and they edit out everything else, and then they present it to Donald Trump, and he sits there and he goes, "My God, I didn't even realize we were doing this good." He sits there and he takes in the 2-minute briefing because that's all he needs to make the wise common sense decisions that only Donald Trump can make. And he's like, just give me the highlights here. I don't need to know all the ins and outs. I don't need all the details. If I'm going to make an informed decision, if somebody could just cherry pick the best moments and put that into a video, so when I get on the news and I say that we're winning, I have all the confidence in the world because you guys have cherry picked the information that I need to still feel good about this. But you got that problem. It's ABC. NBC. Is that where we're at? That we got to believe NBC on these things? And then, listen, we already did a very robust breakdown of this on the Part of the Problem podcast, but I guess this was the most egregious lie and where Donald Trump is, it's unbelievable that he just wants to win every 24 hours of the news cycle. If he's not front running the markets, and so just creating news so that friends can trade and they can make a killing, the idea that you will just say something that has no basis in reality so that for 4 hours the internet, your biggest supporters can feel good and other people can go to work debunking you and some people can walk around confused about what's going on. But the fact that he will lie through his teeth on things that can be easily debunked and just try and win 4 hours, doesn't plan ahead 6 hours in the future or care that the entire world is going to go, hey, that's not what's going on. And then he'll just wake up the next day and just lie again and have no shame about that process whatsoever. It's really quite remarkable. But here was the most insane statement made amongst his claims that he decided not to bomb Iran because Iran was now negotiating. Remember, he said he was going to engage in war crimes. He was going to put an end to this thing and take out all of their energy infrastructure. More pain than they could have ever seen ever. And then here he is after he walked that back because claiming that we've made progress and we're actually in conversations. They suddenly trust Witkoff again, even though Witkoff twice fooled them and engaged in negotiations, and then we bombed them anyways. But here's Trump, and with his most grandiose claim, you can see him just winging it, making it up on the fly, and saying, hey, listen, I brokered a deal with Iran. We're going to run the Hormuz together. Let's roll the clip, producer man.
Be in control of
That'll
that.
be opened very soon if this works.
How soon? And who's in control of it? Will Iran still be able to control the flow of oil?
Be jointly controlled.
By whom?
Maybe me.
You want the United States to be in
Me
control?
and the Ayatollah, whoever the Ayatollah is, whoever the next Ayatollah. Look, and there'll also be a form of a very serious form of a regime change. Now, in all fairness, everybody's been killed from the regime. They're really starting up. There's automatically a regime change. But we're dealing with some people that I call...
Once again, it's the doll hairs. I promised you $1 million. I said doll hairs. Hey guys, just to be clear, we already won. We already got regime change. This is a different regime. I killed the leader, and I know his son is currently in charge, and it's the same governmental structure, and that the people didn't unite and overthrow their government, and we don't have a partner that we can negotiate with the region. But this is a different regime, everybody.
Trying to be very reasonable, very solid. The people within know who they are. They're very respected. And maybe one of them will be exactly what we're looking for. Look at Venezuela, how well that's working out.
The regime has agreed to...
We are doing so well in Venezuela with oil and with the relationship between the president-elect and us. And maybe we find somebody like that.
All right, and now let's move on to the response of all of the news agencies, including, you know, the hardline supporters of Donald Trump. Here you have the New York Post, after Donald Trump claiming that they're in talks with Iran and that's why he decided not to strike them. You've got Iran worried Trump negotiations could be trapped to assassinate one of the regime's last surviving political leaders, per reports. That's the problem with when you're negotiating with people and then you go ahead and you do them dirty and you bomb them. And then they wonder, oh, why would I come back to the negotiating table? You might actually do the old age thing of don't shoot the messenger, where you send the person to negotiate and then they just chop the guy's head off, which would seem to suggest that the Iranians are not negotiating and that striking people while you're having conversations is not a great strategy. And then you've got this one, also from the New York Post. Iran launches fresh wave of missiles into Israel, injuring 6. Plans completely remove any hope of negotiation. This was right after Donald Trump claimed that the reason he did not strike them after his 48-hour timeline was because Iran had come to the negotiating table. And then you have this reported from Axios. Trump did not name the Iranian interlocutor, saying he did not want to get him killed, but claimed the U.S. and Iran were aligned on many of the key issues. We're dealing with a man that I believe is the most respected, not the supreme leader. We have not heard from him, Trump said. So apparently it's the most respected guy in the country, but if people in the country find out he's talking to Trump, he might get killed. All right, certainly doesn't sound like you're talking to the right guy. Reality check. Despite Trump's claim of growing consensus, a source with knowledge of the discussions said there not appear to have been any direct talks yet between Goalposts and Trump's team. Goalposts himself denied, that sounds like a person out of the Jungle Book, but okay. Goalposts himself, that sounds like the world's worst flavor of ice cream. Like if you went to some Indian ice cream place and they told you that everyone eats Goalposts and you decided to taste it, and then you found out that it was made from other Indian people who had eaten Indians' food diarrhea after they shat it out and it went down the river. That's what that name sounds like. Glad I took a moment to make that point. Goalposts himself denied that any negotiations had taken place and called the U.S. claims an effort to manipulate markets and escape the quagmire in which the U.S. and Israel are trapped. Latest from Donald Trump, everybody. All right, now let's play this video, which is essentially another declaration of victory. We've totally won this war, but for some reason, we need to continue to remain in the war. And so amidst the victories that we had, the first is that the Iranian regime has been taken out. There's new leaders. It's no longer the same regime. Sounds like quite a bit of a moving of the goalpost. And here's another moving of the goalpost. And you know what? I'll roll the clip first and then I'll comment. Roll the clip, producer man. Producer man, everyone's waiting.
To make you want to pursue a ceasefire. A few days ago, you said you wanted to continue bombing Iran. Now you want to pursue peace talks. Was there something that happened?
The fact that they're talking to us and they're talking sense. And remember, it all starts with they cannot have a nuclear weapon. Just, I said yesterday, they said, what are the top 10? I said, well, number 1, 2, and 3 is they can't have a nuclear weapon. And
you mean the thing that they agreed to before you went ahead and bombed them? What happened to the no nuclear enrichment and no ballistic missiles, which were the hard lines you put into the conversations so that you couldn't come to a peace agreement? So in other words, you didn't have to do any of this? None of this needed to be done and we could be in the same exact place? But hey, this is Donald Trump's new plan for declaring victory. It's the son who might or supposedly be worse if he's even still alive. And so, listen, we got regime change, even though it's the same regime, and we got an agreement from them that they weren't going to actually pursue a nuclear missile, which they weren't. And I'm going to venture to guess that this is not true, because I'm going to guess that after everything that's taken place here, Iran wants to make this as costly as possible, and they just need to survive as a regime and continue to make this costly. And the idea that they're going to, after being attacked by both America and Israel, in the way that they have, not pursue a nuclear weapon will be surprising. But who knows? Maybe Donald Trump actually has worked out a deal with them to go back to the position they were in before he took out the current leader's dad, wife, and kid.
And they're not going to have a nuclear weapon, and we're talking about that. And I don't want to say in advance, but they've agreed they will never have a nuclear weapon. They've agreed to that.
They agreed to the thing before we struck them, and we got rid of the poison pills we had in being able to come to an agreement. All right, let's take some comments. We've got Nibiki. Caught you live. Love you, Robbie. Appreciate the genuinely unique perspective you bring here and on POTP. Been following from Dave's show since 2016. Thank you, sir. Asper Kropon. Crashing the economy in most of Asia into chaos just to replace one Ayatollah with another Ayatollah. Yeah, that seems to be where we are. Vitco US, they agreed to that 20 years ago. Rich Heresy, Trump is talking to Iranian Gordita when he needs to talk with the Iranian Nacho Supreme. There you go. I like it. Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew Camacho is the new Iranian leader, I heard. It's gonna be a new one tomorrow. They got a new guy that they're negotiating the day after that. All right, on the backs of Donald Trump walking back his strike on Iran, we've got allegations of insider trading. This is from Yahoo Finance. The short is a 1.5 billion futures trade between Trump's Iran announcement has triggered insider trading concerns. Chris Murphy, not familiar with him. I'm sure if I saw a picture of him, and I'm pretty sure he's a Democrat also, called it mind-blowing corruption. Prediction market platforms, including Kalshi and Polymarket, are tightening rules. And then this is from the article, because Unusual Whales, that's an account I've followed before. I would trust that over these mainstream media publications. Indicated that traders bought approximately $1.5 billion in S&P 500 futures 5 minutes before the announcement, while selling about 192 million in oil futures. And here's Colonel Douglas McGregor on exactly this, talking about just how much corruption, or just how corrupt whoever is front-running these trades are, and what that means if someone in the Donald Trump administration is passing along this information or creating these news cycles for benefit. Let's roll the clip.
Well, I think we have to understand that we're dealing with Hunter Biden levels of corruption now in the Trump White House. Let me explain why. You put the oil trade up there. There was a bet that the price of oil would tank. That was a bet of about 150 million. Another bet was placed that the market would lift, in other words, rise dramatically. That was a $1.5 billion bet. Now, whenever you bet in the market, which is effectively what it's about, it's a big casino. For those who are only in it for casino purposes, as opposed to others that draw income from it over time. What we need to understand is that you bet less on the downside and bet more on the upside. So the $150 million bet paid off because somebody within 3 or 4 minutes of President Trump's announcement knew what President Trump was going to announce. The same thing was true for the 1.05 billion bet that you've got up there now. Both of these bets paid off handsomely. Now, who in the White House could possibly have known, and who in the White House has access to that kind of capital that could have a stupendous impact on profits? Well,
All right. We'll stop it. We'll stop that there. We got plenty of show left. All right. So now we've got amongst us winning. There's really no reason to even be over there anymore. Iran has already agreed no nuclear weapons, and we got the regime change in terms of the Hormuz, them shutting down energy, our partners being upset with us because we got bases bombed, Iran wanting us to pay him back for all the damage that we've done, Israel pushing for boots on the ground and a full regime change. You guys can ignore all those details that we're still fighting about, because this war is over. We've already accomplished our goals, which is why we need to start sending more military over to Iran. We need another $200 billion to make sure that we can replenish our arsenal of things that we can bomb them with. And we've got to flirt with putting troops on the ground. We're not going to commit our entire military, but just a parade's worth of people to celebrate this victory and to thank the Iranians in person for sending us such a nice gift. All right, and now I want to play this. This is the Iranian response to when Donald Trump said that we're negotiating. And, this guy's talking gobbledygook. So we'll pull the CNN move, and I'll read the transcript while he's talking so you guys can appreciate my beautiful screechy voice. In the name of Allah, the most gorgeous, the strategic power you boasted before has turned into a strategic defeat. The world's supposed superpower could escape. This predicament, it would have happened. By now, don't call your defeat an agreement. The era of your promises has ended. Today, in the world, there are two fronts, truth and falsehood, and no free truth seeker is deceived by your media propaganda waves. Your conflicts have reached the stage of negotiating with yourselves. There will be no news of your investments in the region, nor will you see the previous prices of energy and oil until you understand that stability in the region is guaranteed by the powerful hand of our armed forces. I just want to say, with everything that Donald Trump has gone through and all the people that he managed to defeat in his career and all the characters he took out in the United States media, the fact that these are the people that he might... the fact that these are the people that he might be losing the narrative war to is fairly incredible. This feels like OJ when he got busted for stealing back his own shit. It's just like the fact that Donald Trump has gotten through so many characters and always won the narrative war, and in this case, these people with a green screen even worse than mine are I guess it's pretty easy for when Donald Trump goes, we're negotiating, and then some guy just gets on television, no, we're absolutely not, you're negotiating with yourself. All right, just a couple quick predictions, then we're going to look at some Pete Hegseth news, but of where this goes from now. It already appears that there's been a bit of a de-escalation in the conflict of Iran allowing more things to flow through the Hormuz Strait. And in terms of world panic and the entire world being upset with us for provoking this war and not enough fertilizer and other resources reaching the world, I guess it already kind of de-escalates the conflict if Iran is going to allow other countries to get more oil out of the region. I'm not quite sure at the moment how that plays out with Saudi Arabia or the UAE, or if it's just that India and other countries that buy, I guess, or China that's only buying Iranian oil is allowed to do it. But it could be that the real defeat here is that basically the Hormuz Strait becomes a toll road for Iran. Everyone recognizes that you got to pay Iran to use it, and it just goes back to basically business as usual, with Israel endlessly upset saying that Iran's the enemy, and Iran just moving forward and actually now just being able to trade with the entire world, and people realizing that what's funny? Recognizing that Iran has a right to exist. So I think that's kind of maybe one option here, is that, Israel and America are just really lose a lot of influence in the world and the region, pretend like they won, and I don't really know how Israel continues to sell the story of Iran is our mortal and endless enemy, and perhaps if they continue to go down that road, the rest of the world is going to be, guys, you don't have any oil to sell us, we don't want to hear it anymore. The other option is that, Israel continues pushing for full regime change war, gets sick of losing, and finally nukes Iran. But, I've heard that potentially other nations have threatened Israel, that if they do that, they're going to get nuked. And then I guess the other possibility is that, after Donald Trump took the bait from Netanyahu and the claims from Mossad that if we just took out the leader of Iran, the people were going to revolt, and then that turned out not to work, and then we got stuck in this thing. Maybe Donald Trump, he pulls that rabbit out of the ass and goes, listen, Netanyahu messed up on this, the Mossad messed up, we're done with these people. I think that one's unlikely. And then probably what's most likely is that maybe Donald Trump the Republicans get absolutely clobbered in the midterms, and there's enough of a unifying front in this country to really go after Donald Trump, impeach him, maybe look into all the insider trading that's taken place, and then a new administration actually negotiates a peace deal, and we all just got to deal with much higher oil prices between now and then. All right, let's take a couple comments here. Victo US, I feel like these prediction markets are insider trading gray zones because of how they are set up. I'm okay with that. Vitco US again, Iran giving Trump a run for his money on the stand-up comedy front. Catching 45, Panama canalizing the Strait of Hormuz. That would be an odd one. Catching 45, change the name to Gay of Hormuz. Not bad. Jack Burden 806, the people are revolting, can have 2 meetings. Not sure I follow you on that one. All right, here was just a random headline from the New York Post. Pete Hegseth was the first to push for war with Iran. Trump reveals, let's do it. And I guess the latest defense that it wasn't Israel was, Pete's just an idiot. Donald Trump was not listening to Israeli influence in his decision to go ahead and do this war, and it's got nothing to do with that the Mossad was wrong and lied to Netanyahu about that if we just took out the leader, the Iranians would revolt and we would now have a new Persian Empire, which we don't have to fear or hate, and then we can move on to Turkey. So I guess the latest, in pretending that it was not Israeli influence was that it's Pete is just an idiot. And on the topic of Pete just being an idiot, let's roll this clip.
As well, we negotiate with bombs.
I just got to pause it there. If you didn't hear it, the line was, we negotiate with bombs. And the problem is if we negotiate with bombs and then they negotiate back with bombs, isn't that called being in a war? Isn't that then not negotiating? If you negotiate by punching a guy in the face and then he negotiates by punching you in the face, it sounds to me like you're not negotiating. You're in a fight. That's what that sounds like. But let's continue.
You have a choice.
And now he goes on to describe what I would best state as if you're a lady and you're having a hard time getting your man off, this is Pete Hegseth's advice for how you can accomplish the mission.
You loiter over the top of Tehran, as the president talked about your future.
By the way, watch even Donald Trump's face as Pete Hegseth goes on.
Has made it clear that you will not have a nuclear weapon. The War Department agrees. Our job is to ensure that. And so we're keeping our hand on that throttle as long as hard as is necessary to ensure the interest.
You see that little the left wing from Donald Trump of, that's interesting.
To the United States of America are achieved on that battlefield. This is not Iraq and Afghanistan. This is not a president who's interested in vague.
You mean a country that we can't beat and then just stick around for 20 years so that we can run up the bill for the military-industrial complex? You mean it's different because we're actually having a hard time winning it or committing troops to it because it's not an easy win and it's actually causing devastating consequences? But remember, the way that you negotiate is that you bomb them and then they bomb you back, and that's what's called negotiating. Iran rejects Trump proposal to end the war and lays out 5 conditions. Apparently, Donald Trump sent them a list of 15 demands. I think it was being brokered via Pakistan. And I don't know what the 15 demands were. I haven't seen it reported anywhere. I'm sure it included things like, you have to say thank you to Donald Trump. That's the starting point. No nuclear weapons, no ballistic missiles. We're going to run the Hormuz Strait, and you're going to thank Donald Trump for it. But here's the AI summary of the demands of the Iranians. A halt to killings of officials. That sounds reasonable. Guarantees against future wars. Sounds reasonable. War reparations. That one's not going to happen. Got a bit of a poison pill on that one. I understand why they're saying it. They want the level of folding that they're going to get war reparations for this so that it's an embarrassment to the countries that engage in the activity, and they have the safety and security of knowing that countries won't want to do this again because they were forced to pay war reparations, but that one's not going to happen. End of hostilities. That one sounds reasonable. Iran's exercise of sovereignty, I can't pronounce that word, over the Strait of Hormuz. That one's going to be an issue of discontent because I think that means that they'll be able to charge people forever for shipping through there, and that's going to be quite a strategic asset that comes out of this in favor of Iran. An Iranian military spokesperson mocked the U.S., saying Americans were only negotiating with themselves. Over 1,000 ships and 20,000 seafarers remain stranded near the strait. All right, and then this was the article in the New York Times. Once again, we live in a confusing world. Are we actually going to trust left media sources that we would never have trusted before? Are they suddenly right in their criticism of Donald Trump? Like, are we actually going to be so inconsistent in our logic and go, this situation has just changed here with Donald Trump's lying through his teeth and now left media is actually able to do good reporting? Or was left media right the whole time? I don't know. I don't know what to make of this, but luckily I saw this reported in other places, including Zero Hedge, which I think might have sourced the New York Times. But the New York Times is basically claiming that the reason that we're in this mess is because Mossad messed up. They assured Netanyahu that if we go in right now and we do a targeted strike and we take out the leader of Iran, the people are going to rebel and revolt, and this is our good opportunity to finally have peace in the Middle East, get along with the Iranians, and then start shit with Turkey and annex the other countries next to us. All right. And now I want to play, this is a clip from The Daily Show, because, you know, the one saving grace that we had the entire time with Donald Trump was at least the Democrats were worse. At least Donald Trump wasn't taking away our Bitcoin, putting up windmills, transing our kids, censoring the internet, constantly telling us that we're mean people if we don't believe in forced wealth redistribution. The Democrats are a mess, and we hate them. But depending on how bad this war goes, we're going to be left with a real question of would we have been better off with Kamala Harris? And so now, once again, still hate the Democrats, and it's very weird that Donald Trump is being so bad on this issue that he's making them look good. But here we've got one of the characters from the Biden administration. I remember hating this guy at the time, but here he is talking sense on Jon Stewart's show. Let's roll the clip, then we'll comment.
Recipe for a lasting peace.
Well, we had someone on our podcast a couple weeks ago named Danny Centrenowitz, who is the Israeli Defense Forces intelligence lead for Iran, was that for 15 years. And what he basically said was, when it comes to Iran, what Israel would like to do under this particular government is just break Iran, cause chaos. Because as far as they're concerned, a broken Iran is less of a threat to Israel. Now, the United States of America cannot think about it that way, because a broken Iran means a broken global economy because they continue to threaten the Straits of Hormuz. It means a potential refugee flow like we saw after the war in Syria into Europe. It means a lot else besides. So I do believe that when it comes to this war in Iran, there is a real divergence between Israel's ultimate aims and the United States' ultimate aims. And part of the challenge we've seen is that when we ask, what is the administration doing, they can't answer that question because they don't know why they're there in the first place. They haven't been able to give us an answer.
So what that leaves you wondering, are the Democrats just taking a beautiful victory lap right now? They're doing what the game always is. You try and make Donald Trump look as bad as possible. And in this case, Donald Trump actually, unless he pulls a rabbit out of his ass, has made a faulty decision. And so they get to seem like the reasonable ones as they take a victory lap here. Or would the Kamala Harris administration been smart enough not to have engaged in this war? And while I think Kamala is about as dumb as it gets, I wonder if she wouldn't have taken the risk because she's just like, this doesn't have enough upside and it seems risky. Donald Trump, you know, I think he's a little bit more inclined to feel his might. Took out Maduro. He's feeling the juice. He's like, we can get this done. Everybody loves me. I can do no wrong. I feel like even Kamala Harris might not have made this blunder because she would have been like, this seems real risky. All right. And now let's go to Mark Levin had Mr. Kent on. And if you guys didn't listen to this, you got to go listen to it. It's at 1 hour and 28 minutes in. You got to listen to the whole segment. And these were the dirty tricks that Levin basically pulled in terms of having him on. It would be like if I had Mark Levin on the show and I went, Mark, I want to give you an opportunity to address allegations of your micropenis. Now, Mark, we do have some ad breaks, and it's going to be at the end of the show, so I might have to continue cutting you off and reframing the issue to specifically talking about your micropenis. And if you want to talk about other things like what's your agenda, I might have to cut you off again and ask you a new question about your micropenis, because really, I don't want anyone talking about anything on the airwaves other than, you know, getting the message out there about your micropenis. And, which Mark Levin would be on the other end. How dare you say I have a micropenis? I just have a high-pitched voice. Many people with normal penises talk like this. And so, if you didn't watch it, that's basically what Mark Levin did for the entire segment. And he didn't even win the segment. Mark Levin did not come off well in the segment. But man, did he pull all of the old school tricks of, Joe, I need you to stop doing this. I need you to stop talking. I'm sorry. I have bad hearing. You gotta go slower. I can't hear you. Now, how dare you say that Israel had any involvement? Are you the leaker? Now let me cut you off again because you're condemning Israel and you're making it sound like they did something. All right, Joe, I'm going to have to cut you off again. Commercial break. Joe, we're coming to the end of the episode. I got to cut you off again. That's the short. I basically just saved you all the time of having to go and watch the segment. But to save you guys the hassle, if you haven't watched it, I do recommend watching the entire thing. But here's what Mark Levin put out afterwards, which is the short of, what Mark Levin was trying to get across on the airwaves, which was Joe Kent was defending why he resigned. Joe Kent was stating what he observed that made him think that Israel has too much influence and that Iran was not actually looking to get a nuclear bomb. Mark Levin continuously tried to cut him off so that he could not inform his viewers about an alternative perspective to Iran being this colossal, endless enemy that always wanted to destroy us and always wanted to destroy Israel. He doesn't want people on his show to be able to hear this other perspective, so he constantly cut them off. But here's a couple of the things that Mark Levin tweeted out afterwards, so we'll read this and then we'll comment. 5. He insisted that Khomeini wanted a peace deal and had issued a fatwa years ago declaring that Iran would never develop a nuclear weapon. I knew this was an absurd argument and pressed Kent. The president's envoy also contradicted this by the facts, as have others, as there are obvious and plentiful facts of Iran's pursuit of a nuclear weapon, manufacturing and accumulation of nuclear material, its violation of nuclear agreements, and its clandestine activities surrounding the entire decades-long project. All of this is very circular and is not actual evidence of... Because Mark Levin asserts that they were absolutely looking to go nuclear, and they are, our endless enemy looking to destroy both us and Israel. And then people point out that the leader of Iran said that they are not going to try and get nuclear weapons. People have always also pointed out that they were sticking by the JCPOA, and that they only went up to the 60% enrichment so that they could then downgrade it, and that our own intelligence agencies have said that there's no knowledge that they weren't looking to go nuclear. And so Mark Levin is just asserting, no, it's ridiculous for anyone to say so, because they absolutely were. And our own propaganda by Kushner and Witkoff in negotiations were that they were looking to go nuclear, even though the other intelligence agencies haven't said so. So for one, for Mark Levin, it's just very circular. I've been declaring it on the airwaves for hundreds of years that the Iranians are the worst ever, so clearly they are. And so it's, just the classic, well, what is your evidence of that? If you got bombshell evidence of the fact that they've been cheating the whole time and that underground they've been building a nuke and it literally has written on the side for the United States of America, then you could be right. You could be right this whole time, Mark Levin. If you have evidence that, the Iranians were creating nuclear bombs with the range of hitting the United States of America, and secretly they were always suicidal and they just wanted to nuke the United States of America, that sure would change the conversation. But without evidence of it, it's just a claim, and it's not a better claim than Joe Kent saying, I was there, here's what I've seen from the intelligence, and here's what I've seen by way of Israel influence. All right, let's continue. 8. Kent repeatedly accused Israel of controlling President Trump's decisions respecting Iran, ignoring my repeated mention of the myriad of examples of Iran's 47 years of acts of terrorism and war against our country, embassies, military installations, military personnel, and assassination attempts against the president and other top administration officials. Which, the assassination attempt of Donald Trump was something that they said right after that first one, when he was shot at, and I don't know that they ever presented evidence for that. And now you got this newest one, which we've already explored on the show, and I will say something without evidence that's completely conspiratorial, but it does seem to be in line with the pattern of FBI entrapment schemes of a person who's a total moron without much of a plan. The part of it that doesn't match the pattern is the fact that he was recruited abroad and he was not recruited from an FBI agent. But thus far, I haven't seen any details about who the person who recruited him was, or any intelligence agencies looking to go find that person. So I'm just going to say I haven't seen a lot of evidence thus far that Iran was actually looking to assassinate Donald Trump. And then this other thing, it's just like you're listing a lot of stuff off. Iran's 47 years of acts of terrorism. I don't remember a single act of terrorism in my lifetime in the United States of America that was done by Iran. War against our country. I don't remember 47 years of war against Iran. So I'm going to say both those claims seem inaccurate. Embassies, military installations, military personnel. Outside of when we've struck them. I guess you got the Beirut bombing. I'm not sure what else. Certainly, I'm 38. I don't really remember any instances in my 38 years. Am I 37? I don't even know how old I am. I've got a birthday coming up. I should find out. All right. Kent ignored the repeated declaration by the president that he would not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon and repeatedly insisted that Iran was not close to making a nuclear weapon, in direct contradiction of Iran's own representation of Special Envoys Witkoff and Kushner in the final rounds of negotiations before the president ordered the current military actions. So is that Mark Levin's only piece of information, is what Witkoff and Kushner are claiming the negotiator said to them, which also might have been that guy trying to negotiate? Maybe he was saying something that wasn't true? If all the other intelligence agencies are saying that they're not, is that your one piece of evidence for that they were? And that they also had the delivery mechanism to actually hit us? All right, let's continue. As well as CIA Director Radcliffe's sworn testimony and the statement of others in the know. All right, this is the last piece of this that I wanted to read. 11. I asked Kent about the timing of his resignation and the provocative claims in his letter, as well as his allegations against Israel and supposed Israel lobbyists and their claimed influence on President convincing him to go to war. He responded with generalities, talked about a media echo chamber, and repeated a charge the president essentially was not making his own decisions. He also said he did not issue his letter at the outbreak of the war because he had hoped president would quickly reverse course. Clearly, his resignation letter and the timing was intended for media consumption and to undermine the president, and he hoped would delegitimize the president's decision, which Kent knew would be used by the media, the Democrats, the woke right, and others against the president and his decisions. Now, my question on this one is, let's just say that Kent is not an honorable man. By the way, I'm not saying I fully trust him. He's a little bit too handsome. And when people go from the intelligence apparatus to supposed truth sellers, I'm always a little bit reluctant to jump on board. Now, he's made a lot of things. He made a lot of statements that make sense, are in line with narratives about this war and what was going on. And so it seems to, so far, be truthful and interesting and an honest whistleblower. But, I'm not 100% sold yet. But let's say that he was a dishonest man. Why would it be more in Kent's interest to leave and whistleblow on the president than to just keep his job and continue to be in line with the regime? What does he gain? Unless he got evidence of the fact that he has a payday by a media company, which I think most of the media companies are in line with wanting to go to war. Unless I guess maybe Scott Horton and Tucker Carlson gave this guy so much money to do interviews on podcasts, which are not usually paid for being a guest on people's podcasts on the way out. So this guy's a completely corrupt individual. He decided to leave his job in government and lie to the American people and do what seems to be harder, and for what benefit? I'm just saying, if he was a dishonorable person, what was the upside of the course of action that he took? Because it seems to me like he took the harder course of action, which would seem to indicate the fact that he's actually operating on good conscience and because he's doing the honorable thing. All right, I think I've had enough on that topic. Let's take some comments here. All right, what do we got? Junior Toxicity. This interview is incredible. Oh, you mean my interview of Mark Levin? Anytime. Nibiki. I don't know if I can stand to watch the Levin interviews. I'm so ashamed. I used to be a little neocon that enjoyed hate-filled slop like him and Rush. At least Rush managed to be amusing, at least. I recommend watching the Joe Kent, because Mark Levin's as good as you can be at not letting somebody speak, trying to reframe the issues, pulling the stunt of, oh, I can't hear you, mind repeating that. Mark Levin just absolutely does not want Kent's perspective on air. He doesn't want to have an honest conversation. He doesn't want his listeners to possibly even consume the information that Israel might have influence over our government and that Donald Trump made a mistake here. He doesn't even want to hear them. So he invites the guy on the show with, let's have an interview, I want to hear you out. And then he tries to keep the conversation focused on, are you a leaker? Were you making allegations that Israel took out Charlie Kirk? He just tries to keep him in that one lane and dictate the entire conversation. And every single time Joe Kent actually discusses, here's what I observed and here's why I made the decision that I did, Mark Levin pulls every trick to reframe it and not let that be said. Runaway Slav. Israel needs to be globalized, and a mass wave of Iranian male refugees would be quite perfect to fulfill the sudden worker shortages and can help the women make Tel Aviv feel like London and Berlin. All right. Lekowski Walker. Kent is a Thiel baby. Oh, is that true? Is he tied into the Palantir team? Aspercon. Kent is an Iran hawk. He's just not reckless. I guess remains to be seen. All right. And here is the last thing I've got for today. I got no idea what it is. Let's press play and find out. Before I do, thank you to sheathunderwear.com, loyal sponsor of the Run Your Mouth podcast. You use promo code RYM, get yourself 20% off. Greatest underwear that's ever graced the balls of man. And I know that they got a sale going on now. They got some of the good stuff, all 50% off. You can stack the promo codes. So now is the time to stock up for summer. I'm not going to do a paywall one today, but we'll be back probably next week, Wednesday. But if you want to support the show, please go to robbernsteincomedy.com. It's all $5 a month to become a supporting listener of the show, and you do get additional content over there. And then lastly, hit me up with those porches, and hope to see you in Boston. I haven't been doing enough stand-up as of late, so very excited for those shows. They're usually packed out and a good time. All right, roll this last clip. Let's see what we got. All right. We'll close it out with this. Here's Joe Kent on a conservative show where they don't pull the Mark Levin tricks, and so they're actually willing to hear him out. We'll play the full 3 minutes. We'll call it an episode on this, but here is a more concise telling of the Mark Kent story if you want to hear him out without all of the interruptions from Mark Levin. Play the clip.
Certainly. So I would say, yeah, my views did change. Being the director of the National Counterterrorism Center is probably the most senior rank I've held in the government. Prior to that, I was an operational guy. I enlisted in the Army at age 18, worked my way up from being a private to being a sergeant first class, and then became a warrant officer. So most of my time was deployed downrange at the operational level. And then in the CIA, I was a paramilitary ops officer. Again, fairly low level. I
just want to read this from Jack Burton. Kent, Thiel, and the rest of the PayPal mafia are trying to get some daylight between Vance and Trump so JD has a shot at running in 28. I could see that falling into that narrative is... I I think at least there's chatter that the Iranians would like to negotiate with J.D. Vance and not Kushner and Witkoff because they have some trust in J.D. Vance that he's not going to do them dirty and just be the front of the lying face of America. Which I guess maybe if J.D. Vance managed to wrap this thing up and get us out of it, maybe he would still have a shot in the next election. I don't know why, if Joe Kent is part of this clan, him leaving helps J.D. Vance. I would think J.D. Vance would have to walk away from this administration as well, and I think it's probably a little late for J.D. Vance to play that card. All right, let's continue this clip.
I viewed Israel as a tactically impressive intelligence service, tactically impressive military, and knew that we got intelligence from them. They were easy to work with in terms of like.
Also, I feel like Israel's a pretty good client of Palantir, and I say that just because I believe that they were using their technology during the Gaza war. So I'd be surprised if the Palantir people were actually looking to put this much narrative out that was anti-Israel. But I'm not a total expert on the PayPal mafia guys. All right, let's continue.
They speak English, and they're very similar to us. In the region, there can be some challenging partners just with cultural differences in terms of like day-to-day functions. And so I kind of had that view. I'd say about halfway through the war on terror, I just started reading more broadly, like, hey, how the heck did we get to this place? Because post 9/11, I was a true believer. I thought we needed to basically go to war with, any place in the Middle East that, my government sent me. Halfway through or so, I got a little disillusioned and felt that we were lied to with Iraq. So I did look into and read a little bit about the Israeli lobby. Read the case that Merschmeyer and Waltz laid out as well. And so that was kind of in the back of my head. But in general, I still thought that they were like pretty decent partners. And look, I still to this day, I think that Israel can be a decent partner to America if we get our priorities straight. Coming into this role and being at the senior levels, and also before I was confirmed as the director of the
I probably could have just started this here, to be honest.
National Counterterrorism Center, I had the opportunity and the honor of serving as DNI Gabbard's chief of staff, and I also led her beachhead team and landing team. So prior to the transition and during the transition, prior to her being confirmed. So I kind of got to do a lot of different things in ODNI and be a part of a lot of decisions being made. And the way I saw members of the Israeli government come in and deal with us at that senior level and the level of access that they had, especially in the lead up to the 12-day war, that opened up my eyes. And a lot of what Merschmeyer and Waltz had said over the years was kind of like ringing in my ears of the amount of influence that they had. And then seeing the way that and I talk about this in my letter, especially in this last iteration of the war.
None of this sounds crazy yet.
War, where there was a concerted effort between members of the Israeli government, officially and unofficially, but then also echoed by the Israeli lobby here in America. And another thing I definitely have to hit on is running for Congress twice.
All right, this is the last thing we'll play, but he talks about running for Congress and that he saw how much money you could get to support your campaigns if you're aligned with AIPAC.
I didn't take a ton of, I think I had like one or two donors who may have donated through AIPAC to my campaign, but going and having to talk to AIPAC donors, I realized how powerful they were. And I never fully said, like, I'll do whatever you guys say. So I never got a ton of money from them. But seeing it from the candidate side, just how much money could be available to you if you were willing to make those relationships was also eye-opening. Because again, had I not run for Congress and had to go talk to donors, and then had I not been at the most senior levels of government, I don't know if I would come to the position that I'm in right now. However, if you look at and I'm sure we'll get into this more, the public statements of like Marco Rubio and even President.
All right, let's call it an episode. Thank you for hanging out. Back, I don't know, next week Sunday night, next week Wednesday. If there's still snow, I might try and go skiing on Sunday, in which case Wednesday, whatever. There'll be more episodes coming your way. Thanks for hanging out. Back shortly.